It makes me cross that people focus on the end of life, she said. That's the easy bit, in a way. It's the rest of life that's the problem. I really appreciate this perspective, and I also struggle with it. Why? Because I've seen too many people live with MS and die with it, sometimes badly. Most of their lives go unrecorded by routine data. That may be because MS has sly ways of interfering with our day-to-day living. It's messy and forces us to mind the gaps. We need to acknowledge the impact of the messiness of MS and the messiness of most other long-term neurological conditions too. It's an extended messiness. As a group, people with MS can expect to live marginally short of a normal lifespan. Yet MS often imposes limitations: physical, psychological, mental, emotional, social and spiritual, which vary in intensity, puzzle and confuse, lull, alarm, and isolate by turns. MS doesn't always have a good press. Life is rarely stable. We're never sure what's around the corner. Fatigue, vulnerability, perhaps disability or frailty, which leave their mark, change us, wear us down. Our wishes, hopes and dreams, priorities and possibilities alter over time. It's also an extensive messiness that affects many parts of our lives. We can't always keep up with contemporaries, may experience being distanced from people we used to associate with, and meet closed doors, misunderstanding and resistance. It may steadily erode independence, powers of choice and control, and even our dignity. And the messiness impacts on families, friends, neighbourhoods, communities. Mind the gaps. Whether we've got MS or another neurological condition, we know what it's like to live with gaps. There are gaps to do with information and services, gaps around continuity and coordination of care. We long for gaps to be filled by people who listen and drip feed only what we can absorb right now. People who understand the dilemmas of neurological conditions, who know what to say, when, and how to say it straight with sensitivity and compassion. Gaps of uncertainty, like wanting to get out and about but unable to make it, wondering when we should plan ahead, for what, and who will be there for us in a crisis. Empty gaps fill up with worries, how to cope with ups and downs, loneliness, near misses, all part and parcel of everyday existence with relapses and remissions or progressive disease, potential forerunners of the end. How do we bridge the gap when we feel really worn down and unsure, and someone says, "You've always got through before. What makes this time different?" The hated gap of helplessness, when we swing backwards and forwards, over and between worst and best case scenarios, like emergency admissions to hospital wards whose staff know nothing about our neurological conditions, mistreat or ignore us. There's a hungry gap for good care and support, 24/7 if necessary, until the very end. And then some for those we leave behind. And a huge gap between wanting total care for all of me and its availability. If you ever shake a tin outside a supermarket for any neurological charity, take note of individuals who need to stop and confess to you a deep sorrow in their hearts for someone they know who's struggling with a neurological condition or has died. And how difficult, no, impossible they've found it to visit and keep in touch. We need champions to help us mind the gaps and cope with the messiness.